Hello, students. Today we're going to be working on animating our ads, which is going to be super exciting. First of all, you may consider starting out by doing kind of a rough sketch of what your animation is going to look like if this is something you feel you might need. For me, I didn't feel it was necessary. I had a pretty clear sense of what I wanted to be doing in terms of the motion with my blog or with my text and my images. So one way you could do this is use Jamboard. If you go to jamboard.google.com, you could take a screenshot of your final ad piece and then just kind of mock up some ideas you have in terms of how you want the pieces to move in. So here's kind of an example of that. This is what Mr. Bush had put together. Again, it's not required, but if you're kind of a visual thinker and you need kind of a way to process like what that would look like, this is a really good way to do that. As a reminder, when you're in Scratch, you really want to make sure that you have uploaded your different sprites or PNGs correctly. So how you can do that is you can go into costumes and click on each of your PNGs that you've uploaded. And basically the goal is to have your text located where you'd had it on your final ad, because it's going to make coding much easier. You're not going to have to play around so much with the location because you already have it pretty much located on the page where you want it. You also want to make sure that it is kind of in a vector mode where you have that checkered background, because otherwise, if you don't, let's say this has a background, as you're coding it, this piece would cover up whatever is already there. So you really need to make sure that your individual images and your text boxes are separated. So I'm just going to go through, like, obviously this one, I want this to become the background. And so that's why it doesn't have the checkered background here, because it's going to be taking up that space. And of course, if you had any white text, you're not going to really see it because it blends in, of course, with that checkered background. But this is a really important piece to making sure your coding is going to work effectively. One other piece of advice is, in some cases, you may actually need to center some of your items. For example, when I actually uploaded my PNG of my start button, it landed here, and I didn't notice it at first because it was kind of zoomed in. And so when I was starting to code it and putting my blocks so that it was centered, it wasn't centering. And so when I zoomed out, that's when I realized, oh yeah, it wasn't actually centered on the page. So when I would push play, it would start up here. So basically that's what you have this little crosshair here for, is to center your item so that it's, starting in that location. Show you just a little overview of the code, which I also broke down for you in this Google slide deck. It's called 2.0 Add Your Code and Animate Your Design. I made it a little bit larger, so hopefully you can see that if you get stuck. It's located in Canvas in our modules under 2.3, Add Your Code and Animate Your Design as well. Note in all of your sprites is that each and every one of them is going to be starting with this when green flag clicked. This is what's known as a parallel process, which means that basically each sprite is working concurrently in some way, so that when this button is pushed, which by the way can be found under events, it's all going to happen at the same time. They're basically working together. So in the case of my start button, when the green flag is clicked, it is going to be showing, versus my other sprites, they're actually going to be hiding because I don't want everything on the page at the same time. So you'll notice that all of them are set to when the green flag is clicked, they're going to hide. And they're, of course, set to the coordinates of 0, 0, because as I mentioned yesterday, we talked about the fact that everything is already laid out on your page in terms of the coordinates. So if I'm actually centering this at 0, 0, it's going to basically lay out on the page just as I like it. And that's why we were saving our PNGs as a whole page versus that individual text box. The next thing you're going to notice is that all of my sprites have this broadcast button, which can also be found under events. And basically, what broadcasting does is it allows the sprites to kind of speak to each other and pay attention in terms of giving cues of when they should be coming in. So, so the start button, for example, when I push it, I have set it as a new message to broadcast start. And then when my first line is notified of that action, like when I click the button, then it knows to show itself and it's going to come gliding in there. And then from there, I have it set to wait just 1 second. And then it will broadcast the number one, which then speaks, of course, to the next sprite, and so on and so forth. So you'll notice that each one of these is receiving, but also giving a broadcast to trigger the next sprite to come in. Time to start coding. As I mentioned previously, every one of your sprites is going to start with this when green flag clicked. And again, you can see the examples of the code in this presentation, so you can always come back to this and reference it. I'm just going to walk through a few of the steps, and I'll pause from time to time to kind of highlight what it is I'm doing. Adding sound. So what I did for my music, I kind of cheated a little bit. I actually went into WeVideo and found a song that I liked and basically clicked on play and then went to the sound option in Scratch and clicked on record and then basically let it play through WeVideo as I recorded it, and then I was able to crop it. So the thing to know if you are recording sound, for example, if you want to actually narrate your ad, it's the same process. You just go to record when you're in sound. The thing though that you need to be mindful of is which sprite you're coding it on. And so for that reason, I really wanted the music to start when I click play. And so that's why I'm coding it actually on my second sprite. So just be aware that you're going to have to pay attention to that. And I'll show you what the coding looks like now. Now that I got the code done for one of my first PNGs or sprites, I can actually copy a lot of it into the next few. So I'm going to just click on Control C, Control V for my next one, and also for the other words. But I am going to be making modifications as I go because this piece here is going to change depending on the direction I want my words to come in. So in this case, it's coming in from the left. This one, I actually just want it to appear next to the first set of words. So I'm just going to make this 0, 0. So it'll just show up in place. For this one, this is my white text, and I actually want it to come in from below. So now I'm going to modify the y-axis instead and make it -80 so that it'll come from down here and move up, whereas these ones I do want to glide in from the left. Includes the coding piece of the project, but you may want to go back and make some revisions because your ad might lend itself to doing some other kind of animations. You may actually even want to tweak some of your work. Like for me, I actually want to make this larger because now that I've seen it kind of all together, I feel like this is too small, especially in contrast to this font. So I'll probably go back into Google Drawing increase this font size, download it again as a PNG with a transparent background, and then upload it into Scratch and recode it very quickly. And then this too, I feel like it's way too small. You can't read it. So I would probably do the same for that. What you need to do is basically upload your assignment in our modules under 2.3. Have fun editing your work.